Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are around the world, and welcome to another episode of Endurance Chat. My name is Marcus Olivari, and I'm joined today by our good friend across the pond, Austin Zetzman, Cookie Monster FL. Good morning for you, Cookie. How are you?
I'm doing alright, man. How are you doing?
I'm absolutely buzzing at the moment. So for context, we're recording this mere hours after the Matildas won what is probably the most dramatic penalty shootout in World Cup history, even more so than the Sweden-USA one. So, like, I am on cloud nine at the moment. This is great. Who needs motorsport?
Oh, man, that's awesome. That's good to hear, man.
Yeah, I'm buzzing. It's like 11:30 at night as well, so...
You had your first soccer watch party too, which was awesome. That's cool.
It was cute. I love watching soccer with friends. I love watching sport with friends. This is so weird and rare. This is wonderful. Anyway, how is you? How is you? My gosh, how is life?
How is me?
How is life up the top end?
Is me good?
Nice.
Is me good?
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, we had a good IMSA round last weekend. Was it last weekend? Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah. Everything blends together at this point.
Well, yeah,
but yeah, just enjoying the United States summer with all the heat that you can afford in Florida. So most of the time, I'm just sitting on the weekends watching motorsports. So
nice.
Indoors.
So this is the thing. So we've been doing this show now for 7.5 years, and it is kind of getting to the point where the races are blending together. It's kind of terrifying. I'm struggling to think back, because it has been near on a month since we've done a Endurance Chat episode. And in that time, we've had the World Endurance Championship at Monza, the European Le Mans Series at Paul Ricard, and as well the IMSA race at Road America. And, like, I watched 2 of those 3 events. I'll be honest, I didn't watch IMSA, but that's fine. And I'm struggling to remember anything specific about them, because it's been a little while, and also, as you said, they're all just kind of blending together.
We've had a few race, or weekends where there was, like, I mean, especially for the United States, I mean, there was a NASCAR race, IndyCar race, there was, like, IMSA, Formula One, I don't know if it was, I mean, it was, I forgot, supercars. So yeah, I mean, and with all the support series too, like, I try to watch everything. So, like, the support series for IndyCar is like NXT, so I watch that.
Yeah.
And obviously IMSA with the Mazdas and the Michelin Pilot Sport Challenge. So it's like, there's so much stuff to watch. And I'm like, all right, I've got like 3 screens, at least 2 of them are running like some racing things, so I can at least watch it. And, but you get your hands full if you're trying to watch as much motorsport as you can, because you can definitely try to do it.
Not even just motorsports. The last 2 months for sport in general has been ludicrous. Like, I've been trying to tee up a From the Grandstand episode with Kiwi, and like every single time we put a time in it, it's like, oh wait, no, this is on. We need to talk about it. Oh no, wait, no, this is on. We're gonna miss this, and we gotta. So like, in the past 2 months, like, my sleep is just destroyed, because in the past 2 months we've had the Ashes, which is like the cricket World Cup, well, like the cricket Holy Grail. We've had a few, like, all the WEC stuff. We've had the cycling, like the Tour de France, the women's Tour de France. We've had the FIFA World Cup, like women's World Cup, which is actually in a nice time zone. But then we've had like the Cycling World Championships as well, and the Bledisloe Cup, and just like, there's just so, oh my god, I just can't wait. Like, Thursday 3 days ago was the first night on which there wasn't any sport that I wanted to watch for legitimately 2 months straight. And I went to bed at 9:30 p.m. because I just didn't know what to do with myself.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Honestly though, that's how you got to recover, you know? Like, and almost trying to like prepare yourself for the next weekend.
Oh my good golly gosh. So let's actually talk about some WEC. So the World Endurance Championship had its last round out at Monza. So this was on the far out. How long ago was it now? It's the 8th of July. That's over a month ago. Good gosh.
Yes.
What's going on?
What have we done?
What have we done? Do we even run this podcast anymore? Anyway,
no.
So it was a cool and interesting race, Cookie. Cool and interesting race. I noticed, my take from the race is that the balance of performance or the balance of power between the top class cars is incredible.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, you'll definitely have the LMDH crowd that will disagree, but I feel like right now, for how they have it, it's pretty solid for LMH, specifically Toyota, Ferrari, and Peugeot. I do think Toyota still has the advantage when they're not kind of like saddled with some extra weight.
Or running into Aston Martins, but, continue.
Or getting ran over by random Ferraris during slow zones and running into squirrels. But yeah, I mean, it's, I think Peugeot, Ferrari, and Toyota showed good pace. Obviously, Toyota winning, but yeah, I thought Peugeot had a solid bounce back from Le Mans after their kind of decent showing there.
Yeah.
For a podium finish as well. Like, that was exactly what was going on. I thought it sucked with the 94 having, more gremlin issues.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, it was a great showing for LMH. LMDH was a little bit worse, but I think it's coming along.
Let's talk quickly about the LMH LMDH divide, because this is something I've noticed. So the top three finished on the lead lap, 200 laps at Monza, nice round number there. And then the first of the LMDH cars was the Porsche, the number 5 car, which was a lap further back. But if you look at the other LMDH cars, the other Porsche was still further back on that lap, and then the Cadillac was a few laps down. I can't remember if they had an issue or anything, but broadly, it seems that the LMDH cars in WEC competition are not at the same standard. Like, remember, we're talking about one lap here. So what, like 6 kilometers over the course of a 6-hour race. So if they're losing a kilometer per hour effectively, which isn't that much, it just stands out quite a lot when, the gap at the top is only 16 seconds.
Right. And some of that, too, was also down to, what was it, Ferrari's tire change? That was, or I think they were a little bit slower on the tire change for the final stint, because I think Toyota came in like as soon as possible. As soon as the window opened to make it in one stop, they came in and changed and took tires.
Yep.
And I think Ferrari reacted like a few laps later to that, and ultimately kind of lost some pace, or at least lost some like distance on the track to that. Right. So, I think it would have been potentially even closer had Ferrari reacted a little bit quicker or was on the same page as Toyota was. So I think that was a good strategy play that helped Toyota pretty much steal that win. But yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to that, if we're talking about potentially like good strategy calls that allow the teams to win, it's usually because the pace is close enough. So, I still think that there's work to be done with trying to find the right balance for LMDH so that they're not driving away from it, but they're not also just kind of like lagging a little bit. And we've still kind of yet to see an LMDH really just sit and squat on the LMHs for all race and just show the same pace, without
consistently
necessarily starting to fall back. Yeah, there's really just not been a race that I can remember where the LMDHs like had podium pace yet. And I think that'll go a long way into kind of shoring up that, like, yep, this is a great championship. Like, this is all working out correctly. Because I feel like it is for LMH. Like, if we removed all the LMDHs from the field, I feel like, obviously it wouldn't be as fun, but I think the cars remaining would all be very close. And like, we would probably all say like, oh man, there's like, how could you really, there's like very, very minor adjustments that need to be made to BOP, but that's it. Like,
yeah, so I totally agree. It seems that the LMH cars are all in a really, really sweet spot, and then the LMDH cars are in a really, really sweet spot relative to each other. It's just that the LMDH cars are like a tenth or a 2/10 behind the LMH cars in relation. And it might not be in outright pace, but it might just be over a stint. It seems that the LMDH cars are less capable of keeping their tires together and keeping their stints consistent than the LMH cars. And I wonder, Cookie, if that is something that is a consequence of how the car is designed. I mean, of course, they're using the upcoming LMP2 tender chassis, for their designs, but also the stock hybrid system. I wonder if it's because of that. I wonder if the fact that they've got this shared hybrid system that's going to be tuned to all of these different engines is part of the reason that maybe they are suffering on some tire longevity. Like, I'm not sure off the top of my head if the spec hybrid powers the front wheels or just the rear wheels, but could that be an issue?
Yeah, I mean, it could easily be an issue. I mean, it adds a level of complexity to the entire argument, meaning like literally and figuratively, because you're, for a lot of this too, is that I feel like we can also get very comfortable when we talk about BOP as being like obviously the main talking points about whether or not it's a good thing or not, and it's created close racing, but it's also important to like explain or at least have the ability for fans to understand specifically what variables are being involved here, and not, where we had kind of equivalents of technology previously, and we had like BOPs to an extent in Group C racing, but that was more for fuel flow.
Yeah.
Like, just explaining how what are the parameters by which that the governing body can change things, let alone like how much of an impact that might have. So to your end, I mean, if we're talking about BOP stuff, removing weight ballast essentially like would help speed the cars up. But, that can create more myriad of issues where like they're a little bit faster in the early stint, but then they burn their tires up and then basically can't do anything. Granted, that would probably be like the team thing. But yeah. My point is that like, I think some of this is difficult to wrap your head around in terms of like, okay, well, it's they're BOP'd. The FIA can do XYZ, I think. So therefore, like, if they don't start fixing this or it doesn't start getting fixed, then like, then the FIA have failed on equalizing the two classes kind of thing. And I think that it's like, not necessarily where you have to make people understand all the different variables that you could change these cars in terms of their BOP, but just like, what you're actually working with here, like you could change. Technically, I think you can change deployment. I think you can change, like when we're just talking about the ERS system, and you're right. I think it is just rear wheel drive, or I don't know. I think some of the cars.
I legitimately can't remember whether or not it's rear wheel drive only. I think it might be.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's just like trying to adjust that, and then also using the LMH platform to also adjust to try to like get them closer to is difficult. I think more difficult than it's ever been. And I think specifically when we're looking at LMDH and trying to, lack of a better word, buff them up, I think it would be who of the FIA to maybe go through some of it in terms of like what their capabilities, just even giving like an infographic 3-minute video of like, this is the different things that are adjusted to cars to like make them race more accordingly to our stated goals would probably go a long way, because at this point, I think a lot of this is going to keep getting louder and louder.
Yeah.
Every round, if they don't necessarily get these LMDHs a little bit faster. So, it also stinks that IMSA isn't doing this right now. Yeah. It's literally just WC that's taking the brunt of everything because they wanted because everybody wanted convergence, but there's no other data point to look at and go like, oh, okay, well, these are just inherently difficult cars to do, or like the other series is doing it better.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting sort of conundrum, because like what LMH cars are actually going to want to race in IMSA? I mean, like besides Glickenhaus, but who knows what Glickenhaus is doing now? I'm not sure. What sort of buy-in the LMH manufacturers have into GTP. I mean, I guess you can look at like Daytona and Sebring, but I don't know. It looks to be a bit of a hard sell at the moment, especially considering that the cost of doing an IMSA season is already pretty damn high. That's another discussion that we'll touch on later. I do just want to say though, the fact that all of the cars like led again for a period. I'm not sure if the Cadillac led, but the fact like the Hertz Jota Porsche and the Proton Porsche that debuted, like the team got the car a week before they were at the track, like, and they led the race. Sure, that car broke down or had electrical problems that shut it off, but they led the race, Cookie. The Proton guys led that was like unheard of. How many times does a brand new car with like to a brand new team just come in and lead?
It definitely would never have happened in the last 22 years.
Except for that one time that Porsche turned up with a 919 and immediately led the first race. What?
Oh yeah, that one. Okay, so fit 13 years, 12 years.
Far out.
Sure.
10 years, 11 years, 9 years.
Jeez. I mean, even then, that's like, yeah, I mean, that was that. I mean, we're talking about Porsche at a factory effort spending $100 billion a year kind of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, we're talking about a privateer team that basically has a customer car and immediately led the first lap, even though they've had no testing. Like they just showed up. That was going to be their first running of the car. Like their shakedown was practice.
Yeah.
FP,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah. An incredible feat for sure.
Yeah, even though they didn't get to the finish. Speaking of, well, I mean, I guess this is a good follow on then. So one of the cars that did finish in the top in sixth place, in fact, was the Toyota number 8. So that, beat out 3 of the 4, LMDH cars. And that was despite having a quite sizable penalty for absolutely murdering the D-Station Aston Martin, with Sebastian Buemi. Sebastian Buemi just seemed to have one of those stints from hell where everything goes wrong. He spun the Ferrari at the first corner and got a 5-second penalty for that, a slap on the wrist. And then later on in the stint, a bit of, I don't want to say lazy, but a bit of an unaware move back to the racing line into Ascari and just completely destroyed the D-Station Aston Martin. What did you make of that incident, Cookie?
Yeah, I mean, he should go burn in hell for sure.
Straight to the gulag.
Yeah. It wasn't great. And there's definitely like Buemi's not made a lot of fans.
Yeah.
Like in the stands. I'm not going to deny that there could be issues. There's just a lot of people that like his attitude just does not jive with them. So as soon as he did that, they're like, they wanted his head. They like wanted him dead. I mean, I'm not a fan of that. Like it's pretty lazy. And he's going to draw criticism because of the way that he talks on the radio. Like people just don't like people that are whiners or like that sound pissed off all the time on the radio. So
I think the term that people will use is petulant.
There we go. And so if you're going to make a mistake, that's going to be really, really, I don't want to say overblown, but it's going to be highlighted quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he probably was driving a bit angry and was just kind of like trying to, get a good line. Maybe he thought that the traffic was like going to brake slower and give him more space or whatever. So it was a misjudgment. It's just a classic We've seen this all the time, and we've seen this like every year at Le Mans, essentially taking out a good GT car. Like
last year, like Perodo and Sims, the Corvette. Like, okay, so it was a slightly different situation because they were 3 wide on a straight, but still, it's exactly the same thing. The faster class car has moved over, assuming that they've got enough distance, and they just haven't.
I think one of the United cars this year at Le Mans, also kind of doing a 3 wide thing, got over too quick and snagged a GT car. So, I mean, again, this is an LMH factory driver and he's a professional, platinum rated, driver. So he should obviously be able to not crash out GT cars. The faults with him. He made a mistake. I don't know. I mean, I don't think a race suspension was ever going to be in the cards. I don't think anything like there wasn't anything crazy egregious. He probably was driving a little bit over his head to try to make up for the issue that he didn't think was an issue with contact with the Ferrari. But again, it's just, I mean, it cost them. So, I can't be too upset about it. And I'm not like looking for blood either. So it just sucks for the GT car that got annihilated.
Yeah.
I think that was the D-Station, right?
D-Station, yes. Satoshi Hoshino behind the wheel. Now, I'm not sure if you saw, Cookie, but in the episode of WC Full Access, which you can watch on YouTube, that they did for the 6 Hours of Monza, they actually showed the section of time after where Kamui Kobayashi, as the team principal for Toyota, and Sebastian Buemi went to the D-Station garage and actually, went to talk to Hoshino, who was still in the medical center, but they actually talked to his co-driver, Tomonobu Fuji, and, apologized and all that sort of stuff. And it was actually, it was a bit weird. I don't think Fuji was very forthcoming with accepting that apology, but I think he also understood that it was a racing incident. It's one of those where, like, they were still very hot-headed because, you know, Buemi had just gotten out of the car and was, you know, obviously apologetic for the fact that he'd destroyed someone's race and sent someone to the medical center. But also, Fuji had quite a reason to be pissed off in that instance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did not see that exchange, but I would like to now for its drama juiciness.
Yeah. WC Full Access, a week after the race on the WC YouTube channel. Every race, the WC YouTube channel, Full Access, WC Full Access. In saying that though, that car recovered and ended up finishing 6th ahead of all the other ahead of 3 of the 4 LMDH cars in the race. So that kind of shows the performance difference. But of course, it is the Toyota, and the Toyota, I guess, besides everything that happened with the number 8, great way to respond after missing out on that Le Mans victory.
Yeah, it's depending on who you talk to. I mean, I guess Toyota were accepting of everything that went down in Le Mans, or people like they're very, very upset.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've seen multiple articles in which they were totally fine with everything that went down and they understood it, and then the other ones where they were just like internally they are so upset. And then I heard something on like the race talking about like
the race.
Talk about F1's potential to move to something not like BOP, but like the principals were yelling about BOP or something like that. And they were like, well, you know, this year went well, but you know, there was a weight penalty that was assessed to a bunch of the cars with Toyota receiving the worst, and internally they're still really upset. And I'm like, where are you getting this from?
Yeah,
I don't know where you're.
The quote that I've seen is, I think one of the board members saying that they lost the race in a meeting room, not on the track. Right. Yeah, which is
right. You know, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's never a positive comment, I don't think. No. But they've managed a very good car, and I think, you know, hopefully stuff that went down, especially at Le Mans, doesn't happen necessarily again. But at the same time, I mean, that's just that's just how it works. And for them, because they did get, I think, a little bit of a break after Le Mans. Like their BOP wasn't, I don't want to say it was like leveled the same, but I think like some of the specific Le Mans penalties were removed, reduced. So, I mean, the car basically, like, if we take everything that they say at face value, that car was hampered a little bit. They basically had all the shackles removed for Monza again, and that car is really quick. So it didn't surprise me at all that they suddenly had pace again to just kind of drive away a bit from the field. I mean, it wasn't like they were driving crazy far away, but they had a comfortable pace and they had a good strategy. So, something that seemingly just went, of course, his way at Le Mans. I mean, they had very good timing on a lot of stuff that was just kind of out of their control. And some of it was just they were making kind of like quick 50-50 calls correctly a lot. And Toyota just kept going safe. And here Toyota seemed to be more aggressive, or at least like on point with the strategy and how it was playing out. So I felt like that looked a lot better too and helped them win at Monza.
And, you know, disappointing some 55,000 or 60,000 or however many thousand, fans, for like.
There's a lot.
There's so many.
Lot. And when Ferrari overtook, I can't remember who it was. You actually heard the crowd noise. Yeah. I've never heard that
at a WEC event. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah. I was like blown away. I was like, holy shit. This is cool.
It's wonderful. I like, obviously, you know, disappointing for all the Tifosi there to not get a victory, but like, damn, they turned up. That was beautiful. I love seeing that. I
mean, when he had tickets that cheap, we're talking so much. I mean, just so much cheaper than a Formula One event. So, yeah. I mean, just the bang for your buck that you can possibly get going to an endurance race, especially at Monza. Because I would love to just walk the track and just those wooded areas where it's just basically a little trail on the back end of the course. Like that's totally like a Road America vibe to me. And I would love to go there and watch a race there for sure. Like
Cookie, go to Europe next year. Go to Europe next year.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're doing a whole European tour over there.
Yes, I may be making some travels, but that's next year.
Okay.
A great race overall in Hypercar. One thing I have noticed, Cookie, as well, is that because Hypercar has just been so damn good, we've just kind of stopped seeing a lot of action in LMP2 because they just don't broadcast it anymore. But, you know, I guess that's fine. But LMP2 was good as well. Jota did good. They finished a lap up on everyone, which is, you know, pretty good if you're finishing a lap up on the rest of the class. I mean, pardon me, that's because...
Jota smash.
Well, that was because, like, where the leader was on track relative to everyone else. But, you know, it was a well-fought battle and, Jota above Alpine, above Team WRT. So, like, the three big players, and then United Autosports after that. So, like, the four big players right at the very pointy end of that race. In fact, United Autosports were a whole 0.888 of a second, get off of being on the podium. So, I mean, what happened, like, obviously we know LMP2 is coming off of the grid next year, but for the last two races of LMP2 in the WEC, like, what do we want to see? Do we want to see what, like, firstly, I'd love to see them on the broadcast more, but I guess it's hard with how good Hypercar is. We're almost,
embarrassment of riches.
Embarrassment of riches. I was going to say, like, a victim of our own success. Well,
Correct.
the WC success.
Oh, you're part of them too, man.
Nah, shucks.
Don't humble yourself. Don't humble yourself. You're WC, man.
Nah. It's the best moment of my entire life. Cause, like, I think back on it, I legitimately can't remember anything about the LMP2 race. Yes, that was a month ago, over a month ago, but, like, I just can't remember.
Yeah, I would honestly, I mean, this has definitely got to be one of the better WC round, seasons that we've had for LMP2, in terms of just how good the competition is, and you're not really seeing a clear runaway team. You're seeing a lot of really good teams fighting very hard tooth and nail to get.
And that's the thing, like, there's so much quality in this, and we can barely see it because there's so much quality everywhere else as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm fine. I mean, again, LMP2 is fantastic. I just, like, the spec part of it kills me so much that it's not that I will not appreciate it. It's that I'm fine to watch LMH because there's difference in cars. And that's what I'm used to. And then GT, like, I've personally not been bothered that much by the lack of LMP2 because I think I'm just not as committed as other people are to that class. Not even committed, but just like
less interested. Well, that's fine.
Yeah. But it's clearly like it is fire emoji if I'm gonna use colloquial younger people terms.
Younger people. Oh yeah, because we're old now, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm old now. I'm mid-30s.
Jeez, I want to be. Yeah, we are old.
Yeah, there you go. It'll happen to you.
Interesting though that the Le Mans winning car, the number 34 into Europol car, they finished down in 5th, so they didn't have the best race, but they were confirmed as the Le Mans champions. Their car finally was released from scrutineering, and there was no untoward things found on that car, so that if result for Le Mans has been concerned. So the Bakers have Le Mans.
Yeah, WOT in shambles after that. I think they're the one who filed the protest. But yeah, that is like awesome to hear finally that they're one. But I think you were one to also mention that it was the stuff that they were looking at is just usually like what could they possibly, because they were starting to look at wire looms. And so it wasn't like they were like investigating a fuel cell.
Yeah.
So
it's just a totally regular part of the whole scrutineering process that they did for the hypercars, and also into Europol just got roped into it as well because someone said, "Hey, look at that car, please."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's nothing untoward.
I mean, to me, to you on the P2 part, I like a lot of times, especially now when I'm seeing the competition, but specifically the teams that are in LMP2 that are at the top of the scoreboard, I'm kind of like, well, man, how cool would that be? You know, like if they were privacy or customer of blah 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 hypercar manufacturer. So it's just kind of like they're like pro enough where I'm like, okay, is there a possibility they could go? And obviously Jota, but I mean like United or the WRT is going to be next year.
Yep, WRT is tied up with BMW for next year. Alpine tied up with, funnily enough, Alpine. Yeah, the odd one out there is United, and the fact that they don't have a works effort is kind of ridiculous in itself. And I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to, they could run a customer effort, but of course, they have the pay drivers that are, paying their way and making that part of their business model. So maybe they don't want to approach hypercar in the situation they're in now. Gosh, I need to cut that out.
Yeah, the United Autosports probably has found their niche in customer racing. Yeah. Niche.
Thank you.
Nietzsche. How about that? Is that better? But yeah, I think that's probably right on the money kind of thing. I think that they genuinely probably attract serious I don't want to say it, amateur drivers, but just like younger pay drivers that are going to be potentially good drivers in the future for as an alternate way to get into either open wheel or a factory ride somewhere in prototypes. And they also just have like the clientele just hasn't existed of a really rich guy who's fast that wants to be in the top class yet, or just for an extended period of time, because we've just seen a lot of their entries be the same crew for years and years. But they're never really that crazy talented. And it's not like they have both cars every single year competing at the top and are just constantly pushing for quasi pro lineups in the cars to meet with the regulations.
That one year that they had like Job van Uitert as the AM driver at Le Mans, that was kind of nuts.
Well, that definitely was nuts, but an outlier wasn't a championship. Like, that's where it's like, okay, well, if I'm realistically thinking United's ever just going to step up, I feel like they would have to showcase that, like, they're committed to both cars, trying to, like, basically just, like, compete in a semi-pro way in as far as they can with the regulations that they're in LMP2 to essentially, like, showcase that they're easily good enough to go compete in the pro class, which I think they are, but I think their internal goals are just never high enough where they're like, well, we need to prove ourselves, or, like, we need to go to hypercar LMP1. Like, they just don't have that feeling like they're ever going to do that.
I respectfully disagree. I think they are the odd one out because, like, in the LMP2 class of the WEC at the moment, you have Jota, who are a hypercar customer. You have Alpine, who are going to be a hypercar works team. You have Team WRT, which is a hypercar works team. You have Prema Racing, which is a hypercar works team with Lamborghini. Like, these are all very big, very accomplished teams moving on to the next step. And the odd one out there is United Autosports. And I wonder why they are not going to be a hypercar works team or customer, because they seem like the perfect fit. The first year they moved to the Orica and they had that ridiculous string of wins where they had Phil Hansen, Felipe Albuquerque, and Paul di Resta in one car, and Will Owen, Alex Brundle, and Job van Uitert in the other. Like, that was ludicrous. They won something like, 10 races straight. They certainly have the credentials. It just beggars belief that they are not running a hypercar at some point. So I wonder, if their business model just doesn't want to support that, and that they don't have the person who wants to come in and push them onto that. Because I'm sure if they went to, I don't know, Porsche and said, we want to buy a hypercar, Porsche would let them. Or if they went to Cadillac and said, we want to buy a hypercar, or whoever, I'm sure based on the United Autosport,
they would garner attention. For sure. Yeah. If they went to any OEM, they would definitely at least have an ear for at least 5 minutes. I mean, they've definitely racked up credentials to do it. I will say, on the IMSA broadcast for Run America last weekend, they had Richard Dean on for an awkward, 30 minutes because, on Radio Le Mans, because, reasons. And he kind of just, I feel like they and the viewers would forget that he was in the booth. So you just hear Heimdall shift to him and be like, oh, so Jim Richard, how's it, blah, blah, blah. It just try to tie him into something, or but then it would be something dramatic, and all of a sudden you just hear Richard Dean's voice come up. But anyway, so John asked him, not necessarily about expansion, but just like expansion for like up to LMH, but more or less on LMP2, and that he was going to be because they're going to be doing a much more full-time effort in IMSA next year because of the lack of LMP2 and WC. So, but he was basically, John was like, you know, do you have enough space? Essentially asking Richard that, and Richard's like, yeah, well, we're getting an entire new warehouse because the place that we're at right now is just not big enough, and so they're doing a whole bigger space just for this IMSA program. So, you know, depending on how successful that turns out to be, I mean, you know, we could be looking at a base of operations that's pretty decent for the U.S. that could theoretically help support maybe a European leg and focus maybe the European race shop to be converted more into something else, more maybe, you know, hypercar-esque. So I think, you know, I wouldn't also put their own internal limiting factors being space or facility either into this mix, because I'll be honest, I don't remember seeing, like, I just don't know what their race shop looks like. So like, I don't know if anybody's like toured it. So yeah like I think just out of my own memory, I don't remember seeing it. So yeah, I would love to see them do hypercars, but you know, I feel like they're in this unique spot where they missed out, but I don't know if it's maybe because it was their own fault, or they just were the misfortunate, unlucky guy that just missed out. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I'm not sure on that either. Let's leave LMP2 for there. Let's talk about GTEM, because there was a few things going on in GTEM. One thing was that it was a Porsche 123, which is great. I love that. I love it when Porsches win at Monza, because it really just tickles me in the right spot. But we also had, Cookie, you're going to love this, the first of our championships awarded. And that is because the number 33 Corvette Racing Chevrolet Corvette finished above both the Iron Lynx, I almost said Ferrari, the Iron Lynx Iron Dames Porsche and the ORT by TF Racing Aston Martin, to confirm Ben Keating as the best Wands driver that has ever lived.
Yeah, I can't even remotely disagree with that. This is the earliest a class championship has been. Well, there's 2 rounds left. Much, yeah. This is. I don't think we've had a class in any of the other categories that has clinched a championship this early. No, not at all.
And as well,
and then their performance at Le Mans. I mean, you know, like to have both of those feats essentially in the same year. I mean, it really speaks to how good that car is and how good the drivers were in it, and especially in an AM class like that, it's got to go to Ben Keating.
And how good Ben Keating is. Like, just for a bit of context, here are the figures at the end of the championship. So remember as well, the first place in the championship has, 5 kilos, 5 kilos of ballast. The winner of the last race has 5 kilos of ballast, and the winner of the race before that has 5 kilos of ballast. So, like, that car was running with 15 kilos of ballast, and still, after 5 rounds, the Corvette racing car has 145 points out of a possible, 168. So they've only dropped something like 20 points. The next closest car, Cookie, how many points do you reckon the Iron Dames Porsche has in second place?
Oh man, you got me in the spot because I have not looked at the championship numbers.
So it's
20. No.
So remember they they need to be leading by 50 points to already have the championship.
Yeah.
So how many points do you reckon the Iron Dames have?
What's the total possible?
So they need like less than 95 is your
okay, you
range.
had the difference. Yes. Okay. 82.
The Iron Dames have 67 points.
Oh my god.
They like absolutely pantsed everyone. Just it's legitimately ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean their really only issue in the season came from their mechanical problem that they had literally on like lap 1 or like the first stint of the race at Le Mans. That was pretty much the only trouble they've been involved with.
Yeah.
The rest of the class has been involved with crashes or spins at some point in at least 1 or 2 of the rounds we've had previously, and Corvette have not. They have just kept it on track. They kept it pointing straight and like not cost them too much with reliability, except for when you're going to have issues at Le Mans, might as well have them in the first stint.
The very first, the very beginning. And like,
so,
and of course, like Keating would have, I suspect that Corvette Racing and Keating would have loved to have been on the podium to win the championship. But like, the fact that they can wrap it up with a 4th place with 2 rounds left is kind of just wild.
Yeah. I mean, I did not think, I think somebody had mentioned that before the race. And I just did not think that was going to happen because it just, those scenarios are tough to have to play out immediately. And then just the way that it happened with both cars kind of like, not necessarily not performing, but basically Corvette just being right around the whole race. I was like, oh God, this is, they probably will clinch it.
Yeah. Well, like, in terms of like Corvette's race, they didn't have the most impressive race, truth be told. They finished down in 4th place and it wasn't, all that impressive a drive. But the thing was that their competitors just had worse races. Like the Iron Dames finished down in, I think, 6th. They finished in 5th. And then, the, ORT by TF Sport, that finished down in 8th. So they just weren't quite in the same mix. It was just all she wrote. So happy days for a Corvette fan.
Yeah, not bad. I think they were on the lead lap, but they got lapped by the
leader,
GTP. Yeah.
Yes.
So why did I say GTP? Oh my God.
You are an America boo.
I mean, anyway, this is a different debate, but I like LMH kind of sucks. LMDH sucks more. GTP at least is like, there is some heritage to it and I can understand it.
What about Hypercar?
That's what I'm saying. Well, Le Mans Hypercar is not really great.
No.
I mean, I guess Hypercar is worse. LMH at least is like, okay, well, you can kind of say, but it doesn't seem like it signifies anything. At least like GTP is like, oh, I remember that. And then I also can like read the acronym and it makes sort of sense that this is a race car. Like, yes, I don't know.
What I'm cooking with, you've taken a whole, 3 seasons to come up? Sorry, that's mean.
I know. Well, it's not like I have it anyway. It's just kind of like, man, I mean, at least with GTP, it sort of sounds correct. The other ones just don't even sound like they're like classes 4.
And he's dead. He's dead, everyone. Let's move on. Fuji is next. The next round of the championship. We've got quite an extended summer break. We're going across to Japan. It will be 26 days and 11 hours from the recording of this podcast. So see if you can work out when we're recording this if you are so inclined. So quite a fair way away still. Still almost another month. We have already seen that Glickenhaus have said that they're not going to continue the rest of the season, so they're not going to make the flyaway rounds. There's not going to be Glickenhaus in Fuji. The last time we were at Fuji feels like a long time ago, but surely we were there just last year, right? Surely it hasn't been that long. But, it's been the first time that we're going to be there with all of the everything in terms of the hypercars and everything. What do we expect from Fuji as a track in terms of the what happens with the cars and what happens with everything else? Like, what are we expecting? Are we expecting anything necessarily out of the ordinary?
Toyota win because they're the best team ever and they got the best car ever, even though they're going to replace it next year. And, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be super awesome. They're going to lap the field. They're
going to lap the field, you reckon?
No, I think Ferrari will show up a little bit better. I don't believe there's any scheduled BOP to take place. So, my thought still is that Toyota are going to win it. Unless that there's some weather, which
is not unheard of.
Yeah, especially, I mean, they've got it moved up now outside of October because October always just seemed like that's when it just constantly rained there. But so we'll see how that works, and hopefully we can get some rain because I would love to see a wet weather race with the LMH field. That'd be fun and interesting. I feel like
that would be super duper smexy.
Yeah, see if the Peugeots can win.
That would be super interesting. Like, because we had a little bit of rain at Le Mans, but we didn't have a lot of rain at Le Mans, did we?
We at times we did, yeah. At certain parts of the track, mainly heading into Porsche curves where like 4 cars aquaplane.
I was asleep for that, so I missed that.
Yeah, that was gnarly. But yeah, we haven't had a really wet weather race, but it seems like the Peugeots handle anything other than perfect conditions better than a lot of the other cars, which kind of surprises me. But at the same time, I mean, I feel like ground effects help a lot too with that. So.
I wonder if we'll actually see, you know how like in certain conditions you can get the sort of visible vortexes off the wings. I wonder if you will be able to see that in the Peugeot's Venturi tunnels, through like out the back of the brake lights if the conditions are right.
That would be sick.
That would be pretty sick.
Yes, I would absolutely pay to see that.
Just quickly, I've got a fun trivia question for you, Cookie.
Yes.
There is one team that has won the 6 Hours of Fuji overall since it's been a WC event that is not a Toyota. Who was it?
Rebellion.
No.
Porsche.
Yay!
I thought Porsche was the easy answer, so I was gonna try.
I was lowballing it for you.
I didn't think they. Oh, okay. Porsche!
Yay! Like interestingly enough, the Audis never won in Fuji, like at all.
Yeah. I mean, when they, I think they started going to Fuji when 2013 or 2014.
2012 was the first year of the
really
6 Hours of Fuji as a modern event. Yeah. And
Toyota just kept winning it.
Yeah, Toyota won. I think that might have even been their first race win in the WEC, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Don't quote me on that if you're listening.
I mean, if Audi haven't won, 2012 would be the first year, and it was just Audi and Toyota and Toyota. So,
Audi and Peugeot.
Peugeot would count.
Sorry,
so it had to be Toyota. It had to be Toyota.
There you go. Yes, so that's Fuji. No Glickenhaus. How do we feel about that? What do we feel about Glickenhaus's future?
Pretty low.
Yeah?
Pretty low, yeah. I mean, they might show up next year for Le Mans, but I don't know. I just, they need help financially, and I just don't feel like they're going to get it. And the customer that they have doesn't really help them at all with this because he just wants to do Le Mans, so which is understandable, but it's not getting the car out there to race without Jim's direct financial support, which they're not really getting. I don't think enough return on their investment for him to be making a lot of money off of it. So I don't know unless the road portion of this gets going a little bit more, but I don't think that's happening either for a while. I mean, he's not really announced anything of like, oh, we're moving into a new building or something. So, it's still working out of a relatively smaller garage and getting that stuff built. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, they're going to need some outside cash injection, I feel like, in order for that team to start doing anything besides just showing up to try to collect a check and attention. But I'm low on them. I'm low on him, Mike.
I think Glickenhaus deserves a lot more respect than he's been getting from the WC fans, at least in the circles that we've been in, because I think, without him throwing money at a project, we would have had like 3 years of just Toyota, which would have been terrible. I think people have been unnecessarily harsh on him. And I think he's done something wonderful for the sport, and that should be celebrated more. And I think his legacy will be a lot better in the future, not so much at the moment. I think his time in the sport will be reflected on better in 5 or 6 years. In my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's tough to say because at least with a lot of other OEMs, I feel like you could kind of like. There's some plausible deniability when it comes to like who's making the decisions in terms of mistakes or just what you're going after or what you're experiencing. Like, I mean, no one's going to look bad on Rebellion, I don't think, at all for what they've done, because they basically just sat and did their own thing as a privateer for so long and not really like tried. I mean, I'm not going to say they didn't try to go into like higher class racing, but they stuck to a plan and continued doing it and executing it for like literally over a decade.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, there's some level of, well, like, they didn't win anything, so to speak. They did win ALMS titles, and they've won some major, races over in America, but not necessarily in the European Championship or Le Mans. But, like, they at least were, I would say, successful in the fact that they were able to stick around for that long. Granted, obviously, they're a timepiece company, and they have money
to burn, yeah.
But they still, were willing to do that and at least show up and save face. I feel like, yes, I'm not going to say that people are going to hold that against Jim. I think there's a lot of like tease, almost like the Nissan LM GTR was to a lot of fans, where it's just kind of like, man, like I would think back on it and just look at the opportunities that they had to, I don't know, shore up just a little bit of testing, a little bit of development, so that like that they're basically their time to shine at Monza like 2 years ago went through and they won instead of blowing an engine and then not winning. So
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But like,
and it's just like this is like that's the only opportunity they really had, and that's like, it sucks to see like something that was that unique and that interesting and just even the characters behind it not really have any opportunity to really just stay the course is unfortunate. So
that would have been a true David versus Goliath moment, like watershed moment in the sport, and it was a shame that it didn't happen, but I think that's like kind of fine. Let's move on from the WEC, because I want to talk about the ELMS race that we had at Paul Ricard just a week after that race at Monza, because holy heck, that ELMS race was straight fire. Did you watch that ELMS race, Cookie?
I watched a little bit. Watched a little bit of it. Just beforehand. Just
before we started recording.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, that was one of the best races of the season, besides all the other best races of the season we've had so far. And I think not too many people will disagree with me who have seen the ELMS race, because you watched most of the first hour, didn't you?
Correct.
Yeah. Which means you watched all the slow, boring bits.
Yes.
Unfortunately. And like the race ended in an awesome climax. But let's talk about a few other things. Firstly, let's talk quickly about Michael Fassbender, who had quite a decent race from a personal standpoint, except for the fact that he got like smacked twice by other cars running into him. What's the dude gonna do to get a break, man?
Yeah, I was saying it earlier. I don't know. It's necessarily that he's done anything just crazy wrong. I think it's just teething. Still a little bit of a driver who's, he just picked this up 3 years ago.
5 years ago now.
5 years ago. And he's basically now running GTE, which is slightly faster machinery than GT3 cars. Like he's doing. He's not driving over his head, I don't think, but I think there's still just little fundamentals of just being in the car all the time and not necessarily avoiding contact or anything like that, but just kind of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And he just, it's little stuff where that just seems like a platitude, it just whatever. But, sometimes it is just like experience of knowing like, okay, well, 9 times out of 10, if I'm in this spot, like it shouldn't necessarily be my fault, but I could be in this kind of not a fortunate scenario for me.
Yeah.
And I've just seen contact and spins and stuff like that it seems like that's where his head's at still, but I'm not going to fault him. I just hope it doesn't discourage him and he keeps his head down and keeps at it. Like, cause he's got speed. Like he's not slow. Which is what I think everybody's worried about when an actor tries to pick up this sport. But, I don't know if he's got Paul Newman speed, but he's definitely quick. He's not slow.
And, as well, like, it's a good thing the good point you make about the, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Cause the first incident, he was just 100% not his fault. The car that's tried to make the move on the inside has just absolutely got it wrong and just basically plowed into the side of him. And it's like, you can't really do anything in that situation. You're just kind of in the wrong spot. But, could a better driver have identified that would be an issue and turned out into the runoff? I don't know. It's one of those things. one of those things where a little bit more experience and he may have been able to make a quicker, better decision, in that situation. What I will say though is that once we had the safety car, for the Team Virage car, well, sorry, it wasn't the Team Virage car. Once we had the safety car, the entire race just lit up. The second half of the race, and of course you missed this, so you don't know shit. The second half of the race was absolutely wonderful, and we almost saw Racing Team Turkey take another overall win. It was like that close, which would have been quite something after their not surprise win at Barcelona. Like, if they'd backed that up and gone for 2 for 2, that would have been just wild.
Yeah, and I mean, their performances have been fantastic. It would have been much deserved too. It just, it was a bold strategy call that just, it didn't pay out. I mean, it could have been a lot worse though.
Yeah, that's true. So if you guys haven't seen the end of the race, I am going to spoil it for you because it was wonderful. But coming into the last stint, it was Delatraz, who was fighting off, James Allen and Neil Jani. So Racing Team Turkey, Algar Pro and Duquesne. I think Delatraz elected to keep the same tires on the car, whereas the other two drivers, had fresher rubber to put on the car. And it was very clear that the fresh rubber was going to get them home. And as well, just as a sidebar, the weather at Paul Ricard was ludicrous. It was something like 35 degrees, air temperature. So it was,
yikes.
It was quite warm. I am going to see if I can actually get a proper exact number on that. Let's see, weather report. It was tire burning temperature effectively. Yeah, highs of 30 air temperature, 50 degree tack temperature. So quite bad time if you're a left front tire at Paul Ricard. And eventually it became clear that the tire was undergoing some significant stress because his lap times just dropped off a cliff. And yeah, with not long left, with less than 10 minutes left, less than 10 minutes left in the race, Cookie. And the top 4 cars were separated by less than 5 seconds. It was that close. And
that's crazy.
In the end, James Allen got through to lead the race and take the win, a second ahead of Neil Jani. And 4 seconds behind that, Louis Delatraz managed to hold on for third ahead of the Inter-Europol competition car. I think it was Rui Andrade in that car at the time. And that was half a second, quarter of a second at the line. So after 4 hours of racing, Cookie, the top 4 cars were within 6 seconds. And it was super duper tense, between that. So super duper cool race. Do recommend, if you haven't watched it, at least catch the 52-minute highlights because it was a great race.
Yeah, I mean, just the ELMS, just the finish that I was watching was, how close those cars were. It felt like another classic ELMS race, in terms of it's super exciting. It does it in a different way. And it kind of just you don't know what's going to happen until the end. I mean, we've seen kind of 3 to 4 car finishes within 5 seconds in other classes. I'm failing to remember one recently in the top class, LMP2, being that close between that many cars. That was, again, just another reason why it's not like ELMS is exciting because it does the same thing over and over again, which is exciting. It just seemingly just has these random lottery draws where things are exciting from a different way in a different way every single race weekend. Yeah. So it's just, ELMS is awesome.
The quality of racing that we get to see in ELMS is wonderful. The driving talent is just off the scale. And as well, not only, we're talking about, the tire was suffering. When they pulled the car into Parc Ferme, they got one of the cameramen to, take a picture or, bring the car onto the camera onto the front left tire, through the big honking hole. And that thing was wrecked. It was delaminated on the inside. You could see the cords. Obviously the rubber and the cording had splayed out and had damaged the bodywork. He drove on effectively a punctured tire for the last 2 laps of the race and still managed to finish a 3 seconds behind the winners. Incredible.
Yeah, especially with it taking chunks of the bodywork off as he's trying to finish. I mean, shocking. That's no small feat.
No, not at all. Other notable results, the Cool Racing and AF Corsa cars finished up the podium in Pro-Am. Racing Spirit of Le Mans won LMP3 ahead of Rinaldi Racing and Cool Racing. And then GTE was Prototype Competition in the number 77, taking the win ahead of Iron Lynx and TF Sport. I'm kind of rushing through this, so I want to talk about a few things upcoming for the ELMS. Now, we know now that LMP2 is out of the WEC, which means that a lot of the teams that would be looking for a WEC full season drive in LMP2 are heading to the European Le Mans series. We're expecting at some huge number of LMP2 cars, because of course they're all going to be competing for a spot at Le Mans, one of the 15 guaranteed spots for LMP2 cars at Le Mans. And of course, with GTE going the way of the Dodo, GT3 is going to be the main car of choice for the GT ranks. The question that I've seen posed by those who are on the button with these sort of things, particularly Graham Goodwin of dailysportscar.com, is what happens to LMP3? Now, LMP3 has been a platform that you've really enjoyed, Cookie, but it's due for a refresh in terms of its engine tender and its chassis tender in the next few years. What if the grid of LMP2 cars and GT3 cars start to invade? What happens to the LMP3 class in the European Le Mans Series, Cookie?
That's a good question. I wouldn't even be shocked if they try to do something like a Michelin Pilot Sport Challenge where they do an LMP3 GT4 race or something like that. Like, because I could easily see where ELMS doesn't do that, because they have to kind of be a catch-all for some of the teams that aren't in WC, can't be WC, or just aren't necessarily good enough for that. And I mean, it would be weird to see them be denying some stalwart teams in GT3 next year, that have been in the ELMS, just so that it supports their LMP3 model. I don't know. I mean, or realistically, we see them try to expand a bit on the Road to Le Mans series. I mean, I don't like they've got basically too much. They've got too much now to try to like spread around into all of the different series. They essentially need to start falling back on something else, making another tier, so to speak, so that they do have an outlet for these teams to try to utilize. But yeah, I mean, they do right now have a lack of a better term, an embarrassment of riches when it comes to people that are interested and want to be involved in all the series. It's just, how do you divvy that out without necessarily, locking out a lot of good quality racing in the ACO's ladder system for years, or decades even. And
that's the thing as well. It has been a ladder system. Like, you look at teams that have built their way up through the ladder, starting in LMP3, like, for example, Inter Europol, who won a championship in LMP3, built an LMP2 team, moved through the ELMS, and then went to the WC and won Le Mans. You look at the likes of Cool Racing, which has, cars in the Leisure European Series, LMP3 and LMP2. They're building their way through the ladder. It's not that long ago that some of these teams, like United Autosports, were building their way through the ACO ladder. So, yeah, I wonder whether the ladder kind of gets diverted because of the oversubscription. And like, the class isn't huge at the moment either. We've got something like 11 cars, 12 cars at the moment. So, in comparison to the LMP2 class, it's only a little bit smaller. But like, if we're seeing, like, saw a Daily Sports Car article where he's supposing 20 LMP2 cars for next year in ELMS. Like, if you got 20 LMP2 cars on the grid, where's the rest of the grid gonna, like, where's that gonna come from? Like, you're gonna squeeze some people out.
Yeah, I mean, and this, it's not like, even to the extent too where we have enough pit stalls. I mean, we're super hamstrung, especially with the courses that we're going to the ELMS. I mean, they're mostly FIA grade ones, and they do have like that quintessential European paddock, but like, it's not necessarily the most like efficient when it comes to cramming people in. At least with some of the American tracks, you can kind of make it work by expanding it.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a wall. So it's, for pit stops. So to that extent, like it's a little bit easier to manage this kind of massive swelling of car counts, but ELMS really can't handle that. Like they can only really handle so many. So yeah, I saw that too. That was it's surprising that many are looking potentially to go into the class. Or it even seems that like the ACO are looking to have that many, as many as 20 LMP2s in ELMS. It seems crazy to me. I mean, the racing will probably be insane. But yeah, it really does then mean that we're going to see either way less GTs than we thought, or we're going to see the LMP3 category get just axed completely and maybe just stay in Asian Le Mans series and then Road to Le Mans.
Yeah, and I think that would be a shame. I think the LMP3, despite it being a little more difficult to follow because of the pit stop regulations and the bronze driver, or well, not the bronze driver, but the like confirmed AM thing, it does bring a lot of color and a lot of character. And I think taking lower classes out of multi-class events is a bad thing, because you're then sort of sanitizing the pace difference between everyone. And I love when there's weird pace differences because it makes the racing interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it adds an entire random factor to it, which you really can't control to a certain extent, and can really hamper the pace of a faster car that should maybe get to pull away, but can't because they're not managing traffic as well. They're just getting caught in bad times of traffic, and it just adds an entire variable to it that you don't find in the other series. It
is the good stuff, which is why I kind of have turned off of just GT3 racing lately, because it is just a little samey, but that's another conversation. The next round for the ELMS, which is really, really cool, is at Aragon, in the the Spanish track that a lot of the teams use for testing. Actually, Cookie, a lot of teams have gone there for testing, group testing. I think even a bunch of the hypercars have gone and done testing at Aragon. But the interesting thing for the next race of the season is that it is a night race. It will run through into twilight, which I think is bloody cool. They should do more, or they should try and do more of that.
Yes.
It'll be a new track for racing for the European Le Mans series. What do you reckon about the Aragon circuit and its format for European Le Mans series? Do you reckon it'll make a good ELMS track?
Yeah, why not? I think it'd be good. Everything
makes a good ELMS track. Of course, it's got the long back straight, and the kind of inverted corkscrew, like where it's it's kind of like a long corkscrew with a really, really long exit to it.
Yes.
Yeah, a track normally used for MotoGP. Of course, it is the height of summer in the Iberian Peninsula, and the fact that we're doing a night race is probably actually, quite good planning from the ACO. But I wonder, we saw quite a lot of tyre dramas at Paul Ricard because of the heat. What is that going to have? What effect is that going to have, rather, on the cars at Aragon?
Great question. Somebody with way better experience and understanding can answer that, but I don't know. I think it would be slightly similar to what we're seeing here. Potentially, some setups on cars can maybe cause some punctures, and we might see that. I don't necessarily think that. I mean, the track layout itself will kind of have some areas where you can run over some debris, but I mean, I think Paul Ricard was definitely pretty hot. We'll just see what the temperatures are going to be like. I mean, it's still not going to be cool when they start racing. So, it might be a case where, they might have to baby their tires a bit, early on in the race just to make sure that they're not going to start abusing them, and see after the first couple stops what the conditions of the tires are like. And then they can go from there. I absolutely love the fact that they're going to Aragon. I think it's a cool circuit.
Yeah.
I also love the fact that they're going to try to do this at night, which, I mean, I think that they, it's just,
it's cool. Like,
it's cool. It makes it seem like it's a little bit more entertainment, and you don't need to do anything other than just literally have them go race, immediately into the night. It feels like a slight American thing that like a lot of Europeans or like the rest of the series just don't want to do. But honestly, it's cool. I like really that. Cool.
Well, it's not the first. It won't be the first European Le Mans Series night race, because they did Barcelona running from daytime into nighttime a few times. I remember during the COVID years. Interesting to me, I've never watched a car race at Aragon. The only racing I've ever watched at Aragon has been MotoGP, but they use a different configuration in the last corner. So, you know, in MotoGP, Cookie, the last corner is this beautiful, long, sweeping left-hander that kind of dips down after the back straight and then rises up over the crest as you come over the main straight. They don't use that. They don't use that for car races. They go a bit further down the straight and use this extremely tight hairpin, and it's kind of a long chicane back onto the main straight.
Definitely a spot to see some last of the relay breakers and sending mail and whatnot. Because you're sending absolutely mail? Right. It is
sending mail.
It's licking multiple stamps
and sending it,
and then sending the mail.
I guess sending the mail is an appropriate metaphor. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Continue, please. Sorry.
Wow, I got my reaction out of the butchering of that quote. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, it's another great opportunity for overtaking. Not to say that the other configuration wouldn't have, but I think here you can absolutely see people defend or even try to retake the position if they lost it earlier in the straight. It's a completely different. It's a different look to some of the course. And yeah, realistically, the only stuff that I've even really had experience with is like watching a couple of YouTube videos of some Formula, like Renault cars drive it, and also on iRacing. So it's just kind of like, it's a classic track. I love the scenery too with it. Just kind of, you know, the rock face on part of the circuit.
Yeah, kind of sort of Badlands sort of vibe of just like rock and dust and dirt and yeah.
Exactly. And then, yeah, your inverted, corkscrew sort of like much more tame, but still very cool corkscrew.
Yeah, that's pretty rad. I think it would be a great spectacle and I can't wait to watch. So that'll be in 2 weeks time. So a bit sooner than the WC round, which will be nice. And yeah, I can't wait to watch some more, MotoGP action. Gosh, I'm some European Le Mans Series action.
Hey man, let's get some multi-class racing in there. Let's get some legit multi-class racing. Let's put some motorcycles racing around some sports cars.
Far out. That just those words together legitimately terrifies me. Speaking of things that legitimately terrify me, IMSA also had a race at Road America last weekend. And
that's true.
Very much dominated by a particular brand of car, which made me happy. But not after a bit of a comedy of errors from another particular brand of car. Cookie, did you watch the race? It was from your neck of the woods, the Cheeselands.
Yes, it is. It is where I originally have called home, and yeah, it would be what I would consider my local home track. Even though there's one track that's now I do, but yeah, when I lived there, I didn't. But yeah, I mean, I would go to Milwaukee Mile, which is an oval, and then there's a really, really small short track, like a quarter-mile short track, but it's like really heavily banked. It looks like it's like I don't know, like one of those cages where you see like motorcycles drive around like on the edge of the wall and stuff like that. It feels like that. It straight up does. It's called Slinger Super Speedway, and that's actually coming to iRacing soon. They said they were going to be adding that.
Super Speedway.
Slinger Super Speedway, yeah. Oh yeah. So that's technically my home track and for oval racing, but Road America is definitely my home track for road courses, and it just helps that it's one of the best tracks ever. So
I do agree that it's one of the best tracks ever. So I will be completely upfront and honest. I haven't seen the race. Like it's not come up on a replay yet that I've seen, and I have made no effort to go and watch the race. What I did see, however, was that Porsche won, and they were clinical, which made me very happy. And BMW had a really weird race. Can you shed some light on what happened to the BMW?
Yes, absolutely. They the 24 car had an issue with the electronics on it. It basically died partway through the race, and they tried to limp it back home. The 25 had a problem with in between the steering wheel and the seat. And basically we had one of their what was it? Connor De Filippi like ran off wide into the gravel trap, had to get pushed out by the marshals, and I guess that was the reason why he said the balance was off. And so when he went past all the GT field, he then couldn't control his car heading into the kink and ran wide, smacked the kink wall, and just basically ruined their race. And they came out like with 40 minutes to go in the race.
So to clarify, Cookie, when did Connor De Filippi end up in the gravel?
That was during the warm-up lap.
During the warm-up lap. When was the last time you saw a car crash on the warm-up lap? I do have an answer for this.
Wasn't it this year?
Oh, when this year?
I'm trying to think. I feel like there was something that happened. But no, not to corny narrative. When was the last time? I don't know.
The last time I remember seeing one was in the 2021 race, WEC race at Spa-Francorchamps, where Mike Wainwright binned the car in the Campus S's, like on the warm-up lap, and that car was out of the race. That was the last time I remember. There's a few other times. I remember, in supercars once where, Cameron Waters and, Scott McLaughlin crashed into each other at like the support race to the F1. And also there was a time where Scott McLaughlin, back driving the Volvo, remember the Volvo? He had an oil line pop off of his car at Adelaide, coming out of the center chicane on the warm-up lap, and just spray the entire rear wheels with oil and crashed it into the tire barrier, like into the concrete on like the second corner of the warm-up lap. It was super duper weird.
I don't know if this technically counts, but yeah, the 24 Hours of Spa this year they were in the safety car for like the first 10 minutes, and a Porsche, I think, like crashed over Radion, like I think trying to catch back up to the field for something. So that was earlier this year. They were technically in safety car conditions, and it was, like a damp track. So
that is almost unforgivable.
Technically not the exact first lap of the warm-up, but it still was before the race had technically gone underway. So jeez. I would...
that is hilarious.
Yes.
Anything else much happen during the race at Road America?
Let's see. No, not necessarily. Corvette screwed another one up. They had an issue with their pits. They had a minimum fueling time violation that they had to then do a stop and go. I believe they ended up managed to get within 20 seconds again, or like less than 20 seconds with the leads. They were definitely closing, but I believe they settled for third. So that was unfortunate. They definitely had that one pretty handily in the bag, I think. I didn't think that Aston Martin really had anything for him. So
yeah.
And let's see, the other classes, 31. Who is it? Sims, I think, binned it in the actual warm up, the 15-minute warm up before the race started, and the Action Express boys did a crazy job getting that thing repaired and able to race. They had to start from the rear.
Yeah. Lost
their pole. I thought they would have had a shot to actually contend with the Porsches, but yeah, Porsches just ran away with it. And yeah, I mean, we saw the Michael Shank, Meyer Shank Racing 60 close up the Acura, but couldn't do anything. Traffic really impeded the Porsche at the end. And yeah, Campbell kind of underplaying his role, saying basically that like he had really easy traffic at the first half of the race and it started to fall away from him, traffic wise by the end. But I don't know. I mean, it didn't seem like a lot of people were affected that much by traffic. It looked like he was steadily pulling away even when they weren't dealing with traffic. So yeah, they just seemed like they had everybody's number.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that Campbell is doing good things in that Porsche seat, because I was a bit disappointed that he missed out on a drive at Le Mans. So the fact that he's, putting his hand up and saying, "Hey, I can still drive this car properly," is, good. In my opinion.
It was a great stint by him.
Yeah. I also saw that Ben Keating won again in LMP2. Now taking the LMP2 class lead, which is just so Ben Keating. LMP2
was just a mess. Everybody was firing off I don't want to say it was a mess. I would say LMP3 was a mess. There was just so much carnage in LMP3, and it was mostly just LMP3s going off. Like, but one of them, I'm diverting from LMP2, but one of them like went off at the end of the carousel.
Yeah,
I mean, just shot off the track. It looked like he was doing like 100 miles off the track.
Fire.
And but he crumpled the front of it, like pretty. I don't want to say he hit the crash structure, but it was. I don't even know how he got that car back. It didn't even look like there was too much suspension problems. Just all the bodywork was all just completely smashed into the nose. So, but yeah, I think that was second place at the time.
Jeez.
There was a lot of crazy stuff. I think the leader had spun at one point. But yeah, so LMP3 was a mess. LMP2 was a little bit more controlled, but you still saw a lot of mistakes in LMP2, and of course, like Ben Keating's just not going to. So
yeah, because he's Ben Keating and he's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was solid.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of want to move on from talking about Road America. I know. I'm sorry. I want to talk about the new IMSA season that's just dropped. The calendar for 2024 was one of the big talking points of the weekend, for the IMSA championship. They are maintaining a 12 round season across the IMSA events, for their classes. One of those is just a, St. Petersburg race. One of them is just for the, the VP, fuels lowest category of the rung, at St. Petersburg. Another one is, Michelin Pilot Challenge and the VP Fuels series at Mid-Ohio, and then 12 races for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. An expanded endurance championship, Cookie. We've got a 5th endurance round, this time at, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is cool. Thoughts on that one?
Do I have to?
Okay, that's fine.
No, I mean, I don't know. It's great. I mean, it's all right.
6 hours of Indy? Not your huge.
I Road America. I mean,
yeah.
That's my deal. I mean, I feel like that or Laguna Seca should be getting some more hours in it. And Indy just feels like it would be a nice sprint race, or combined with IndyCar or something like that. It's just. But I don't know.
Think of Penske. What will Penske do if there's not a 6-hour endurance race at Indianapolis?
I mean, I'm fine with the fact that he's able to help support the championship with this round enough to, I guess, a lot for an extra endurance round. It's just, it's what Roger Penske wants. So it's not necessarily what. I don't know if all the fans would necessarily agree with this. Obviously, people in the area that can go to this or can travel to this are going to appreciate it. But yeah, I don't know. It's the thing that'll probably help soften the blow is just seeing all the infield stuff, because it seems like they're going to be opening up a lot of the infield for camping, and so at least from that aspect, it's something that people can go to. And that seems like that would be pretty cool to be able to do that. But it's just the track is not really my favorite at all. And
you don't have to be kind, Cookie.
Yeah, I think Road America deserves that. I think, like I said, whatever we're calling Laguna Seca now,
I believe it is WeatherTech Raceway in Laguna Seca.
I think that would be an amazing 6-hour race. It's just, it sucks to see it have to be Indy, and it sucks to see that if it weren't for Roger Penske demanding this and demanding it be at Indy, we probably would only just still see 4. And it's I don't know, I'm not, what am I saying? There's more racing. It's another endurance round. This will be interesting to watch. It's just, the picture I'm getting is an hour 4. I'm watching them go through the first chicane in the infield. And I'm like, is this going to be entertaining? Is this we'll find out.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
The addition of Indy has come at the expense of Lime Rock, So Lime Rock won't be on the calendar next year as a GT only event. We will still have the GT only event at Virginia International Raceway, which is awesome. But that is one part of the schedule that I wanted to talk about. The other part is that, there's quite a lot of clashes between the IMSA calendar and the already announced, major endurance races for next year, including the WEC, including the 24 Hours of Spa and the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. So here's just a quick rundown from the Daily Sports Car article. There are multiple scheduled clashes with the 2024 WE season. Long Beach will be run in the same weekend as April as the WC race at Imola. The race at Laguna Seca is scheduled as the same weekend as the 6 Hours of Spa, and the weekend at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park is being held at the same dates as the WC return to Sao Paulo. In addition, the Detroit Grand Prix, so the one that they're using on a new Detroit street track for some reason, clashes with the Nürburgring 24 Hour, and the Endurance Cup race at Watkins Glen runs at the same weekend as the Spa 24 Hours. That is, for a 12-round calendar, to have 6 events clashing with major sports car events, including the series in which you have a convergence of regulations agreement with, is kind of ridiculous. In fact, it's not kind of ridiculous, it's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, this was posted in our IMSA Racing, and I made comments over there, which you can go read yourself. It's great, good discussions, but in it, people have been making just the standard comments like, this is a lot of clashes. Like, this seems kind of insane for them to kind of do this. And it's just like, well, this is kind of like, the IMSA's always done this. They always seem to release the schedule. It's cool that they do it at Road America. Props for that. I don't know. They do a state of the sport thing that's so late in the year that, like, whether or not that was the norm before, that everybody has been, has had to need to figure out sponsorships and all this stuff. It's not the norm anymore. Everybody's been trying to get as much calendar stuff in as humanly possible. But basically, again, it screams to the standardized way of how the sporting events operate here in America. Is just like, they react solely to the sponsorship and to, what their sponsorships or what their partners are basically able to work with. And like, that's full end, that's full stop. They are like a sponsorship, partnership, priority first kind of championship to raise money to support the championship, which it has its strengths and has its weaknesses. It's just that this is pretty extreme. And yep. I don't know of a lot of IMSA rounds that actually genuinely change their dates. They keep them pretty close to set in stone. And I just, like, in a lot of the stuff too, I mean, they booted Lime Rock because of unavoidable scheduling conflicts. Well, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me when you're dealing with this in the first place, that like, okay, well, the priority doesn't seem to be the championship tracks or locations. The priority is just like a scheduled conflicts for sponsorships. Like, this doesn't seem like it's anything other than that. And I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way every single time this happens. Cause again, like, the reason why we did this and why IMSA is in a position that it is now is because everybody put their hands up and went, okay, well, we probably should stop competing against each other constantly. Like, basically, like, let's
get on the same team here.
Right. Yeah. Like, constantly watering down the product because we want to, have our cake and eat it too. So they merged to make, like the USCR at the time, and now the WeatherTech, championship. So it's confusing to me that IMSA's got to this point where it can wield significant amounts of power, yet chooses to do so and like do it directly at its quote unquote competition internationally, which is we're not really, it's not supposed to be competition anymore.
Yeah,
like,
well, it just seems a bit, mindless, brainless. And like, if you say that the IMSA championship, who are the customers of the IMSA championship? It's not necessarily the people watching, it's the people competing. It's the manufacturers. The manufacturer pay like a 6-figure buy-in to get into the series. If your customers are going to be the likes of Porsche, of BMW, of Cadillac, maybe, this is maybe relevant for Cadillac, it'll make sense in a second. If these are your customers, and they have programs, factory programs, in events like the World Endurance Championship, or the 24 Hours of Nürburgring, the 24 Hours of Spa, because they're Intercontinental GT Challenge Championship teams, and they've got significant GT3 programs, what service are you doing to your customers who are paying to race in your series if you are then saying, you can't race in that because we're scheduling an event on the same weekend? Like, you think of the amount of drivers, particularly for BMW and for Porsche, who would have already been thinking about or been timetabling in events in the WEC or in the 24 Hours of Spa, the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. Like, the entire Porsche GTP team were racing in those two events for GT3 cars. And like, Manthey is taking over the GT3 car in the World Endurance Championship. Probably some of the Porsche drivers involved in IMSA would be involved in that. It just doesn't make sense. You're basically ousting your customers for being committed to multiple programs because you're clashing with all these events. And like, I'm sure it's not just Porsche and BMW who are in this boat as well. Lamborghini, if they get their GTP program running as well, like, if it's an Intercontinental GT Challenge, they're going to be racing in those events, and they're racing in the WEC. Like, if Honda or Acura starts their GTP or their hypercar program, if that's something that happens, they're going to have to make a choice between IMSA and WC. Well, they're probably not going to now. They're probably just going to say in GTP and IMSA because, if half the rounds are going to clash with WC events, well, then how the hell are they going to get an infrastructure built up for the WC? Like, it just doesn't, it doesn't make sense. It's not very, friendly. It's a very unfriendly schedule, and it's just
right. I mean, and it's a gamble. It's just basically like, what do we prioritize first? And they clearly are trying to prioritize their sponsors and the people that are paying or helping them pay the bills, which is, it's understandable to a degree. It's just that the level at which they're going about this is again extreme when it comes down to the fact that like a lot of the same driver talent pools and teams and again, like their customers, direct customers, as you say, are going to have to start making choices. And it's just kind of not in the spirit of where we're heading or what we're trying to do here in any of the other series around the world. I mean, you talk to Stefan Richel and you talk to, the ACO guys, FAA guys, like they're I mean, like they're trying to make things as more inclusive as possible, because I think that they're seeing dollar signs when it comes down to having massive grids, having lots of talent, attracting lots of, sponsorships and partners due to that, a success. And realistically, IMSA is just trying to carve their own out of it, but doing it in a way that it's not, it's making themselves look bad. But we should understand that because they're just chasing sponsorship. And it sucks because, again, nobody's beholden to the fans, even though, that's what everybody says. But, at the same time, I mean...
They're not beholden to the fans. They're beholden to their stakeholders, Cookie.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's the perfect word to use because you don't... Never mind. But, yeah, it's... I just... It doesn't feel very friendly, like you said, and it doesn't feel very in the name of sports cars that we've been trying to do for however long.
In the name of convergence, the whole point of getting everyone onto the same regulations was that you could have teams come over to the other event, whether that be GT3 or or GTP or Hypercar, come over to the other series and race. If you're going to make it harder for them to do that, then what is the point of having convergent regulations? Right,
exactly. It again, and it wasn't explained. The thing is John is always full of platitudes. Like he's always got, not like they're bad, and it's not like he's not doing a good job. It's just that like he's always kind of had an ability to kind of talk around sometimes some of these subjects, especially when he's at Mazda. God, trying to like talk down fans that were like, why the hell can we not win these races? Yeah. Like that's tough. That's definitely tough. But he's explained himself pretty well on a lot of things. With this stuff, it just doesn't, like, there's no acknowledgement of the awkwardness that has to come from this. Like, it's just kind of like, well, this is the only thing that we could come up with, guys. Like, this is it. And, like, we had some scheduling conflicts. Like, again, it's not like, of course you had scheduling conflicts. If you put all these dates here, that clearly screams that you had lots of scheduling conflicts that for some reason you decided to put them on the exact race weekend of a major endurance race in some other part of the world. Like, no, duh, you've got scheduling conflicts. Like, what on earth is going on, I think, is what people want to know. Cause like, if it's 1 or 2 rounds, like, okay, I can understand that because you have a window for the local authorities to have this certain thing, and that's when it's usually been. And that, like Nürburgring 24 and Spa 24 can shift on their dates every now and then. But
they've been locked in for over a year now. Well, sorry, not over a year. They've been locked in for a few months.
It's crazy to me too that like this will come out after everybody else has had months essentially to chew on every other major sports car racing endurance calendar. For, like I said, for months, and that now this comes out and that it's so interspersed with major endurance rounds from other championships that it's like, I mean, like,
bruh,
why? Bruh. Like, what is the actual reason here besides scheduling conflicts? Like, is it specifically because you cannot seem to tell any of your sponsors no, and that you gotta have, like, you have to have, like, you cannot race on these weekends because of actual scheduling conflicts? And not necessarily on like, oh, well, this track has already been booked for a Lemons race that weekend, so we couldn't take that race weekend or something. Cause like, these are insane scheduling conflicts that I don't actually understand. And it's not like they're doing back to back weeks on some of these things because they have to cram them in on a 4-week schedule because all the tracks want to race then. They all seem to be pretty spaced out. So I just don't get it. Like, I just don't get it.
It is quite confusing. And you would think, like, major sports car events, you'd block out, like, you don't want to race the same weekend as, like, Le Mans or Nürburgring or Spa, even, like, especially when you're in that same market. Like, I can understand if a WEC event clashes because, 12 rounds versus 9 rounds, it's hard to actually get that to match up nicely, even though you've got the full summer period where, sorry, not the full summer period, the full winter period. I'm on the wrong side of the earth. My apologies. Wherein, Daytona starts the series off in mid-January, whereas, the WEC doesn't start till March, so you can kind of play around with that. But it's like, it just seems to be that, I don't want to say, like, they've maliciously, intentionally scheduled, like, they just hadn't thought about it, and it just seems to me that, like, that is very insular, inward thinking when you've got a very outward global audience and customer base. So, bit dumb.
I mean, and then last, there's 2 things. Not to mention Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, they got absolutely screwed because they lost GTP.
That's ridiculous.
And it's on the same weekend as IndyCar in, what is it, Montreal, I think, or something?
It's the same weekend as IndyCar I was just looking at it.
Not Montreal.
At Indy?
No, at like Toronto or something, I think. It's like Indy in Canada. So like a lot of people are like, well, why would we go? Like they would want to go to an IndyCar race potentially more than the IMSA race. But even if there was GTP, but there's no GTP. So like half the appeal for people is to go see GTP, and they literally remove that. So like the Canadians got completely neutered in terms of having their IMSA schedule like thrown over. And again, it's like LMP2, GTD Pro, and GTD. So like, there's an entire race for LMP2 that they got to show up for, that they're the top. Like, it's just really strange. It's a really strange calendar. Then lastly, Indianapolis Motor Speedway was September 20th to the 22nd. And then Petit Le Mans 2 weeks later at Road Atlanta. So it's just weird that they now have 2 endurance rounds where essentially they've got a 6-hour race and then a 10-hour race 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Like, it's not spaced out really kind of after Road America or before Road America. It's like right smack, right at the end of the
Wait, did you say
calendar.
that's 2 weeks later? Isn't that the same weekend that, what's it called? That, the the SRO Indy GT World Challenge event is? Hang on, let me just look this up. Road Atlanta, because I'm pretty sure the Intercontinental GT, IGTC 2024. Far out.
It'll at October 5th. So that would be a week before.
Okay, so it's a week before. So yeah, they've got 3 weeks between, because I noticed that the Indy round of the IMSA is 2 weeks before the Indy round of the IGTC, and so like a week after that, then you're in Road Atlanta. Okay, so that's not the worst, but still, it's only a 3 week turnaround between the two endurance events there.
Yeah, it feels weird. The scheduling feels a little weird, and I also then understand too that they're, Petite's going to be at the early part of October. They really just don't do mid or late October anymore for obvious reasons. Because good lord, when they did it in November, that was not moist. Well, I guess they did have some tropical storm, but it was cold, man. It got below freezing, so
Shit,
we were.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, in Atlanta, Georgia. So that was fun. That was super fun. I don't want to do that again.
Would you prefer that, or would you prefer the time that they had to cancel, or like had to finish the race early because it was just so wet?
Oh yeah, that was my first time I ever went to Petite. Nice. I had in the when they rain shortened the 2017 Rolex 24. That was my first Rolex. So I have, and then also I think the first time I went to Daytona 500, it got rained out on Sunday. I went back on Monday, and it got rained out.
Yeah, and then bring the weather with
I know. It literally was a thing where I was like, well, I'm going to a new track.
European tour.
That's what I'm saying, man. I bring the rain. It's like NASCAR's thing where like they've had 22 out of 37 events this year be affected by inclement weather. Yeah.
Wow.
Like, just I can't believe how many times that NASCAR like has just had rain delays this year, including the Shane Van Gisbergen race too.
The Chicago race, that was amazing.
Yep. Yes, it was.
I love that that's the Shane Van Gisbergen race now.
I mean, it's like now he's going to be racing full time next year, I guess. So.
Far out, yeah, that's a bloody trip.
Yeah.
He raced in the truck race last night.
I didn't watch that. Hopefully he did well.
I think he went a lap down late on the race. I saw his interview post race, because he's like, if he like just had the chance to do like an oval race before he does the Indy road course next week or tomorrow or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was just like, just hook me up with a truck and I want to learn. And he said some interesting things about it. But I'm sad that he's going to NASCAR, because it means he's not going to race supercars anymore.
Yeah. Monkey paw curls on that one, bud.
Yeah.
That was cool to see him win NASCAR, but then immediately he's just going to ditch supercars.
Well, that's because supercars are in a really weird spot at the moment, and it's kind of sucky, but, we shall figure that out. Hey, Cookie, I think we're at the end.
Holy crap.
Yeah. It's just ticked past 1 o'clock where I am. And
wow.
Yeah, between us taking like 20 minutes to start and internet issues on your behalf, it's been 2 hours of recording. So I think, I'd love to stay up and talk more sports cars with you, but I think we do need to leave it there, because at some point I need to sleep, and at some point these guys need to stop listening to us.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for joining me, Cookie.
Thank you very much for having me, Michael.
And thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We will see you again after a little bit of time, because we're in the summer break time, which is nice for us spending all of our nights. Well, for me, spending all of my nights watching sports cars. But in the meantime, I hope you are enjoying yourselves, enjoying your summer or season wherever you are around the world, and have an awesome time. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Michael Salvo. Peace out.
Yazoo!
Cookie is suffering some internet dramas, so we will ask him the question again when he returns. In the meantime, enjoy me, I don't know, making a funny voice to all 0 people who are listening to this conversation right now, because no one turns up for our live shows anymore, which is kind of sad, but that's okay. It just means that we get to talk about things that other people shouldn't know about, like the fact that things that I'm not even going to risk saying.